Welcome to Be Undaunted. This is the podcast that helps you lead stronger, elevate your impact, and live with more energy.
I'm George Dom, former Navy fighter pilot, Blue Angels flight leader, and corporate executive.
And I'm Tara Collingwood, performance dietitian to Olympians, CEOs, and everyday people that are just under pressure. If you're ready to grow, to strengthen your leadership, and to reclaim your energy.
If you want to feel more intentional, more capable, and yes, more undaunted, you're in the right place.
Hello and welcome to episode 5. I can't believe it. We're already on episode 5, George.
I know. 5.
There's some kind of landmark or something with 5, right?
I know. Well, in the Navy, if you shoot down 5 aircraft, you're an ace. So we're going to be an ace today.
Wow. Okay. Didn't know that. I learned some little bit of military trivia every time I chat with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for, to give you a little stuff for your next cocktail party.
I love it. I won't be shooting down any planes anytime soon, though.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to start today, before I tell our listeners what we're even talking about, with 2 stories. All right. So we're going to start a little different today. So these are 2 stories of 2 different high performers. The first, an elite endurance athlete, trained 6 days a week, rarely missed a workout, wore exhaustion like a badge of honor. If the coach said do 5 miles, she did 7. If she felt tired, she pushed harder, because that's what champions do, right?
Yeah.
Well, one morning she woke up, her legs felt like absolute concrete. Her resting heart rate was high. Her mood was bad. She wasn't sleeping well. And no matter how hard she trained, her performance started going backwards. All right. Is it because she was not strong? I don't think so. All right, so let's talk about the second high performer. This is someone in a corner office, back-to-back meetings, emails at night, flights every week, prided himself on being the first in, last out, told his team, we're going to rest when we win. Or like you and I have heard before, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right?
Yeah, right.
But over time, of course, he became less patient, more reactive. Team started to play not to lose instead of playing to win. And he was absolutely depleted. So what's the problem here?
You know, we talked last time about energy and all that goes into that, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and the challenge, and this is an uncomfortable truth, that, you know, neither of these folks failed because they lack discipline, but like so many of us, they built a culture that glorifies grind and just really ignores or just discounts the importance of recovery. So whether you're an athlete or a leader, we all know that performance doesn't grow during stress. It grows whenever recovery, just like you're at the gym, you work out, you stress your muscles, and then the muscles actually grow when you take recovery during rest.
Absolutely. I tell the athletes that all the time, that when do you feel sore? The next morning. You don't feel sore the minute you set that dumbbell down. You feel sore the next morning. Why? Because that's when your body was actually building and repairing some of those tiny muscle fibers that you tore. And the same thing happens for us is, you know, when do you get your best ideas? When do you reflect? Not when you sit down and go, okay, brain, I need some good ideas, right? It's when we're recovering, we're exercising. You know, a lot of people say they get their best ideas in the shower, right? So if we want to be undaunted, we have to restore, we have to recover. But I feel like, you know, these days, I don't know, I sound old when I say these days, people glorify just the grind. It's like there's some kind of badge of honor for working 60 hours a week and working on the weekends and answering emails at midnight and whatever. I mean, what's up with that?
I think we all feel this pressure to succeed, the competition, particularly, short fuse goals and analysts, investor calls and all of that. And we're all really just trying hard to succeed. And pretty soon, you sacrifice getting rest. And the funny part is that you think you're at your very best.
Right.
I'll tell you a quick story. When I was working in the Pentagon in early 2002, right before Iraqi Freedom Operation, and I was responsible in the Office of Strategic Plans and Policy. Okay. And so everything I was working on was on the front page of the Washington Post every morning.
Oof.
So I was, highly motivated to get good work done. So here was my schedule. I would show up at my desk at 6 o'clock every morning, and pretty soon we'd start going into, meetings and so forth and, doing the work all day. And then about 5 o'clock, the admirals and the generals would come up for air, and then they'd want to know, okay, what happened today and get ready for tomorrow. And so we'd be in meetings late into the evening, and then we'd have to do the work to get ready for the next day. So I was walking out of there on a good day. I was walking out around midnight or so. And I took such great pride in the fact that when you're in a secure space and you lock the door, then you have to sign a thing that with your initials and what time the space was secured. And I took great pride in the fact that my initial was always at the bottom of the list, being I was the one that was, closing and locking up every night after everybody was gone. And then I would do that Monday through Saturday, and then I would sleep all day Sunday, and then I would get up Monday morning and do it again. And what I later came to realize was if my boss wanted to get the best work out of me, he better give me my tasking Monday or Tuesday. Because after Wednesday, I'm just hanging on, trying to get through until Saturday and then get some rest and then get back into it. So what I thought I was operating at a very high level throughout the week, I really was, diminishing returns just because I just wasn't getting any recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people can relate to that story of I'm just going to push, whether it's physically or emotionally, mentally, I'm just going to do it until I can't do it no more. And what happens is, I've seen this, I know you've probably seen it, is we either get sick, we get injured, or it can be some kind of an emotional, I don't want to say breakdown, but it can lead to maybe some apathy where I just don't really give a crap anymore. Or it can lead to maybe just, feelings of anger, resentment. I mean, there's so many things that can happen, right? So recovery, that's really what we want to discuss today, is this idea of, yes, it's always important to, yes, push and stress our bodies, and that's great, but that's actually not where growth occurs. It's in that recovery. It's in that restoration. And I think people might be surprised to hear maybe what our definition of recovery is, because it's not just sleep. So many people I talk to, they're like, oh, I just need to sleep and then I'll be recovered. But when we talk about recovery, it's more than just taking that vacation or getting sleep, which I think are probably the top two that people think of, right?
Yeah. And, recovery is really anything that allows you to be restored in each of the areas, each of the four dimensions of energy that that we talk about, right? So maybe it'll be helpful for our listeners if we just step through each of the four dimensions,
sure,
and talk about, what do we mean by getting recovery in each. So why don't you go first with the physical dimension?
Yeah. So, physical dimension. So this is the one that we think of often when we think of recovery. Obviously, that's sleep, but it's also, nutrition. So if I'm burning the candle on both ends, I'm probably also grabbing things that are quick, that are unhealthy for me, that maybe are comfort food. So filling my body with some good nutrition, hydration, making sure that I'm drinking enough throughout the day, not just drinking 17 cups of coffee or alcohol to numb myself at the end of the day, because those are two common things that I often hear with my business executives, is the caffeine to start the day, the alcohol to finish the day. And both of those disrupt sleep. And both of those, of course, have varying effects on our body. Exercise. Of course, we want to try to get that 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week, ideally 30 minutes per day, but even just taking some active recovery throughout the day. So if I'm sitting and Zoom calls and meetings and all of that, taking, 5-10 minutes several times throughout the day to go for a walk. If you get sunshine, that's even a bonus. Then you also are, getting some vitamin D and you're getting some really good rays on your body. Those are probably the biggest things that I think of when we think of just physical recovery. It's not just sleep, but really getting some movement, getting some exercise, eating some good things for ourselves and hydrating.
You mentioned coffee. I see a lot of folks that really enjoy grabbing a can of Red Bull. What do you tell, as a nutritionist, what do you tell your clients about Red Bull and
some of the energy drinks? Yeah, the energy drinks are, depending on the size and the brand, they're equivalent to maybe a half a cup of coffee. Some of them are equivalent to a cup of coffee or more, of course. But, it's the same thing as coffee. Energy or caffeine is what I call false energy. So it's a nervous system stimulant, and it will wake you up. It'll make you alert. It will maybe help you focus. Short term. And then too much of it, of course, is going to make you jittery, can disrupt your sleep at night. So I think it's okay to have a little bit of caffeine throughout the day, but you also want to be careful of when you're having that and how much of it you're having throughout the day, because it adds up very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me chat then a little bit about mental recovery, because that pretty much involves stepping away from whatever you're doing cognitively, where you're, intensely focused, really getting after it, and just, relaxing and trying to let it go for a little bit, and the challenge for that is that too often we're bouncing around between various tasks, back and forth. We get a ping on the computer screen and we're switching and so forth. And all of that constant task switching can be fatiguing, right? It's going to be interesting, I think, for some of our folks to hear that, stress or activity in one dimension can be recovery in the other. And exercise is a great example here, that exercise is a great way to get mental recovery, where you can just unlock from what you've been doing, right? Taking a walk, just going outside, as you mentioned, taking a walk, leave your phone at home, take out the AirPods, but just go for a walk, enjoy the day, nature, try not to think about anything that's work-related or whatever you've been grinding on.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation has gotten a lot of publicity here in the last 5-10 years, and meditation can be a way where you just some deep breathing and then meditating a bit, just trying to relax your mind, sometimes just doing nothing, and that sounds like cheating, but you do that for 5 or 10 minutes and then you're restored and then you're back, you can get back into it, right? And of course, I'm a big fan of naps. So, early afternoon, if you have the ability to do it, man, just closing your eyes for 15 minutes or 20 minutes can make a whole bit of difference.
Yes, absolutely. And, that meditation might turn into a nap if you're nice and comfortable.
Yeah, if your body's trying to tell you something.
I love what you said about just doing nothing, being bored. I think that is overrated these days. I mean, people can't even sit at a stoplight without grabbing their phone and texting or checking something. And, I always challenge whenever I'm working with teams and people to, next time you're in a doctor's office or you're in line at the grocery store or you're whatever, don't grab your phone. Just stand there. And that's, again, when ideas can come, is when we're bored and we can actually think about other things. Or God forbid, maybe you have human interaction and you chat with the person behind you or with the clerk who's checking you out or whatever, right? So I think that doing nothing can help us in so many ways in mental recovery, but also in emotional recovery. So when we think about, during the day, we're so stressed out and focusing on so many different things and our emotions might be all over the place. So again, that exercise can be good. Music can be a good one, just putting on a song. And if you dance to it, that's a bonus. You can do that whether you're working at home or even in the office. Just do a little, put on some nice music that you like to dance to. Journaling is always a good one. Every single therapist I've ever talked to in my entire life has said journaling. And really, in our digital age, people like to just journal in different ways. But there's research around putting pen to paper, the old fashioned having pen to paper. That can be really cathartic, even if you wrinkle it up and throw it away. Just getting some emotions out on paper has been found to really help to calm people.
Yeah, it gives you what they call cognitive distance, right? Where you're getting it out of your head, it's swirling around in your head, and you write it down, and now it helps give you a little bit of distance from it so that you can, reflect on it a little bit, but also put it away if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about physical, emotional, mental, those dimensions of energy. What about that spiritual dimension of energy? How do you think people can recover?
Yeah, well, this is where people get a little uncomfortable when you start talking about spiritual stuff, and we're not going to go into any woo-woo here, but as we talked with Dr. Laird last time, when we talk about the spiritual dimension of energy, what we're really talking about is your purpose, where you find meaning, how you want to show up in accordance with your values. And for a lot of people, that's grounded in their faith, which is fine, but it doesn't have to be. So, spiritual, when you're in and God knows we're all struggling wherever you are on the political spectrum. We're all struggling with the realities that we're in today, where everything just seems to be so polarized and just become just exhausting as we wrestle with how are we going to move forward as a country here. And so once again, a great way to get recovery, just like in the other dimensions, is exercise. Get in a workout, and hopefully that'll dispel some of the anxiety and so forth that's going on. Meditation, again, I think, taking time to just read books, biographies about leaders who dealt with some very significant issues and how they dealt with those can be helpful. Writing and journaling, as you mentioned, and then, as always, just like exercise, also nap or sleep, something, because people always say, there's a reason that you hear the adage, it'll all be better in the morning, right? You get some sleep, and whatever is swirling around in your head hopefully will be resolved a bit in the morning, and you'll have another perspective.
That is so true. There's been so many times in my life that I've been struggling with an issue, and your mom always used to say, just sleep on it, right?
Yep.
And it's true. You're absolutely right that when you wake up the next morning, either the answer is completely clear to you, or it does help with just getting a little bit of distance from whatever that problem is, or just, again, giving you that different perspective. I want to add one more when we're talking about, this can be either spiritual or emotional. I can't believe we're on episode 5 of this podcast and I haven't already talked about this, but gratitude and my 365 gratitude app that I am 1,000% addicted to. Well, I shouldn't say addicted, but proud of. I did 365 days in 2025. Every single day, didn't miss a day of my app. It's called Gratitude 365. So yes, I'm plugging the app, and I have no association with the app other than I am a subscriber to it. And what it is it gives you a little quote every morning, but then it also goes through a story. And then you write every day. I write 3 things that I'm grateful for in that moment. And I can tell you, George, that what happens is not only in that few minutes that I'm reading that and reading this feel-good story, and then also thinking about what I'm grateful for, but as I go through my day, I am looking for things that I'm going to put into my gratitude app. I do it first thing in the morning. A lot of people like to do it at night. It doesn't matter when you do it. You can do it at 3:00 in the afternoon. I don't care. But finding some kind of gratitude, again, whether you write it down, you have a gratitude journal. I've had a gratitude jar before where I'll write down something I'm grateful for on a little colored piece of paper and fold it up and put it in a jar. And then you can pick from the jar when you're feeling like you need a little pick me up and remember things that you're grateful for. We've done that as a family before. Number 1 was food. Number 2 was the dog for my kids when they would put things in the gratitude jar. But I actually recommend it wholeheartedly as a family to get kids more involved also in gratitude. So I can't speak enough about how important gratitude is. Do you have a regular gratitude practice, George?
Yeah, I have a prompt in my journal every day that, among other things that I try to capture, one of them is, what's one thing that you're grateful for today? Sure. It really is a list.
It makes a difference. Yeah, you think about it. Okay, so I want to talk about how people might know if they need recovery. Okay. So, let's think about physical recovery. If you're tired, if you're irritable, if you're not getting good sleep, if you're, find that your performance is declining, if you are getting sick often, if you're injured often, those are all things that can be signs that you're not recovering well, kind of physically. So, George, when you're working with leaders and teams, what kind of things do you see that are like telltale signs for not recovering well?
Yeah, well, pretty much what you just mentioned. I mean, the atmosphere, the relationships among people, irritability, it's pretty apparent the adage is that the leader is responsible for building and manage his or her own energy, but then also responsible for managing the energy of the team. And the leader has to monitor, how's my team doing energy wise? And because too often there's a crisis and everybody, all hands on deck and they get after resolving the crisis, but then that becomes the normal way of work, right? And the leader doesn't set the conditions such that the team has a chance to get recovery. Because, as we talked about last time, the human energy system is oscillatory, right? And sooner or later, if it's being stressed chronically over time, it's going to get recovery. It just may not be on your terms. It might be a heart attack. It might be a divorce. It might be an injury or an illness. I mean, your immune system will oftentimes break down. So you're going to get recovery. What's effective leaders and athletes do is that they are very intentional about getting recovery on their terms, not on the system just having a breakdown and getting to recovery.
Yeah, and I think we need to think about that as individuals, but even, with teams. I mean, if you're finding that that team is just not running effectively and there's lots of side conversations and, we see turnover within teams and, things that can happen. So, there might be time that you need a retreat. You need to do something to do team building as well. So there's recovery that we're talking about, as individuals, but I think as teams as well. So, in your military service, I'm sure you've seen this. And of course, in the leadership, talks that you give and with teams, what other kinds of things, do you recommend when it comes to sort of that, team building?
Right. Well, again, it's, you have to manage the schedule. Also, think about, when did you do a really high level of productive work? Right before your vacation.
Exactly.
Right? Because recovery is coming. Right? And so therefore you're able to just sprint, that last week before the vacation and just get a lot done because you want to tie up all the loose ends and so forth. But wow, you get a lot done. But if you don't know that recovery's coming, it's just like if you don't know if there's any more income coming into your bank account, what do? You just start, just uh, putting out just enough to get by after a while until you know that there's going to be more money coming in. So similarly, you need to have a schedule. And that's why, just the notion of a Sabbath day is really important, knowing that you have one day a week or half a day that you're just you don't have any commitments, any requirements. You can just relax, can make all the difference leading up to it.
Well, and I think that's a really great point, is that we all need that, Sabbath day. And a lot of times now our weekends are just as packed as our weekdays, especially if you're in that cycle of kids and maybe your kids are in 17 different activities and it's, splitting up and going into different directions on the weekend. And then you get to Monday morning just as exhausted as you were Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So I've learned that I can't pack my weekend anymore. It's so funny how with age comes wisdom, doesn't it, George?
Yeah.
But seriously, like when I was younger, it was like packed all the time, go, 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 go. And now I'm like, no, I'm not going to make plans with too many people, too many things. I need to have that, couple of hours at least on the weekend where nothing is scheduled, nothing is planned. And if I want to sit and put my feet up and read a book or watch something on Netflix, that is what I'm going to do. Because that can be recovery too. We didn't mention that when we talked about emotional and mental recovery, just watching a movie and escaping into some other story. I mean, that is absolute recovery. And of course, too much of that can then not be a good thing. But, we need to have that little escape, I think, every once in a while. And the weekends are what that's for, your days off, right?
That's exactly right. And it's probably not an issue too much to our listeners. I suspect most people that are listening to us are the type A, let's go for it type of attitude. But I just want to make sure people don't misunderstand. We're not saying that stress is bad. In fact,
No.
Just the opposite. We say stress is good. Stress is what helps us grow. If you don't have any, we say no stress, no growth. It's the chronic stress over a period of time, unrelenting stress over a long period of time. That is what is the problem. And so we're advocating that you oscillate, that you sprint and do great work and be productive and so forth, but just take time to get recovery. And we would advocate that on, any given work day, you pace yourself roughly 90 minutes of, the science says, 90 minutes of fully engaged work, and then take 5 minutes or 10-minute break, and then, hydrate, get a snack, go for a walk, and then pitch back in, for another 90 minutes, and you oscillate throughout the day. And then each week or so, you try to get a little more stress. But, and then as we talked about last time also, is this idea that if you practice doing this, after a while, you don't need as much recovery. And so you become very fit, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you can be stressed, but then quickly recover and get back in the game.
Well, and just knowing that recovery is there. And that's what training is all about, is saying, okay, I'm going to work. And I'm so glad that you talked about the 90 minutes, because that, again, is rooted in science of our circadian rhythms and how our body goes throughout the day, is that we've got these periods of high energy, and then we need to have that little bit of recovery. And definitely the science shows that we really can't focus for more than about 60 to 90 minutes on one given task. And I feel like that's getting much shorter in today's, digital age of everything is moving so fast now that people need breaks more often. And that break is, going, like we've talked about, going for that walk and whatever. And I also feel like, having the multiple screens open and multiple tabs open, and it's so hard to just focus on one thing, that we have to, sort of have that, close all the tabs in your brain so that you're just focusing on one thing. One thing that I have heard, and I don't know when you're working with teams if you've heard this more often, is literally a mental health day. So people can call in, quote unquote, sick, saying, I need a mental health day. And that is actually starting to be included when people have their sick days, they have their personal days, and they can have, a couple of mental health days throughout the year. And that's starting to be encouraged by workforces to say, you know what? Sometimes you're not sick physically, but you emotionally really do need that break. Have you heard of this?
I haven't. And I can quickly imagine people saying, particularly entrepreneurs and startups and whatever, going, you wimp, you want a mental health day? This is anyway, but the concept is good. And I think when you're hiring people and you're assembling your team and you assemble people who are really, there's no doubt that they're going to be productive and get the job done and do so forth. So when they come to you and they say, look, I haven't had a day off and whatever, I'm going to take a day. As a leader, you shouldn't begrudge them that. You should welcome that, because when they come back, they're going to be locked and ready to go. So
exactly. Well, and I would even say, as a leader, you should take a mental health day, right? I mean, if the leader is leading and saying, you know what, I need a break and my brain needs a little bit of recovery, and I'm going to just take the day and go do whatever it is you do on a mental health day, whether it's go get a massage, get a pedicure, sit and watch Netflix, whatever it is that you want to do for your mental health day. I think that's a really good thing for a leader to role model as well, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the leader has to be the one that models it. Otherwise, nobody's going to ever believe that you think it's a viable thing to do. So in all aspects, you have to model what you're expecting, what the standards are for the team. Yep.
All right. So if we want to think about recovery, let's think about just a couple of things we can leave people with here. So for me, I think it's thinking about your day in this circadian rhythm, kind of 60 to 90 minute intervals throughout the day of focus, and then stepping back for 5 or 10 minutes. And whatever that 5 or 10 minutes is for you, it could be jumping jacks. It could be going outside. If you're working from home, I'll tell you what really, really rejuvenates me is my little baby Coco girl, which is my dog. So pets, we forgot to mention pets. Yes, pets can be a huge recovery on those days that you're working from home, or on the weekends, spending some time with pets. So what else? What else can you recommend that people do on a daily basis?
Well, our experience in the work we're doing, as well as what we did when we were coaching with the Human Performance Institute, is what we see in particularly in business executives is that they are getting chronic stress mentally and emotionally, but they are not getting enough stress physically and spiritually, right?
Yep.
So we would encourage people to, get some recovery mentally and emotionally. And oh, by the way, one of the best ways to do that is exercise, which then helps stress you a bit physically and get you the recovery and builds energy physically, which is a good thing.
You know what I love, and this, I don't know, it depends on your work situation, of course, but a midday workout. In different work sites that we have been in, seeing the gym during lunchtime, when people can just go in and get that quick little workout, even if it's 20, 30 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, just trying to do something in the middle of the day can really help with energy for the rest of the day. And morning exercising as well has been shown to kind of give good energy levels throughout the day. So I always get asked, when is the best time of day to exercise? And my answer is when you'll do it.
Right.
So
Right.
really any time of the day is good, but, trying to split up the day a little bit with those microbursts of exercise. I think that's a good one. We talked about, the sunlight exposure as well. And, again, that's weather dependent. And if you can go outside, even if you have a window where you're working or can go over towards a window, if it's not possible to go outside, there are so many benefits to getting sunlight in daylight.
Yeah. I try to do stretching and some mild exercises first thing in the morning just to activate everything, get the blood moving, get limbered up. And when I'm in the office or somewhere, I'll try to, instead of riding the elevator every time, take the stairs. It's
Absolutely.
helpful. I mean, and, a lot of people use stand-up desks. That's another way
Hmm.
to keep the blood flowing during the day, which all contributes to your performance.
Yeah. So last thing, what about the recovery, kind of that transition from going from work to home? And this became really bad during the pandemic when so many people were working from home and work was home. And there was a really difficult transition from work is right there because I was just there working all day. And you look at the desk where you were sitting and it brings, stress. Do you have any suggestions of how people can sort of take that little, do something, some kind of ritual to break work and home?
Oh, sure. Too often you see people who don't make that transition, right? And they go home to the people they say matters the most to them, and they're bringing all of this fatigue and cognitive overload and so forth at home. And we had one guy I remember years ago in the class, and we used to do these 360 interviews,
Mm.
not only with their work colleagues, but with their families. And this one guy came up to me after getting his 360 that included his family, and he was just ashen-faced.
Uh-oh.
And I said, "Hey, what's the matter?" And he was holding the 360 in his hand, and he said, "I don't know what to do with this." And what it was his 5-year-old son his wife had asked the son the questions, and then she filled it in. But the question, the son answered one of the questions with, "I don't think my dad likes me very much because when I'm around, he's always angry and tired." And
Mm.
he said, so,
From the
we need to,
mouths of babes, right?
yeah.
Wow. Kids can tell us the truth.
So we just need to do something that helps us transition. And one thing that I have told people that works well is, you pick a landmark on your drive home. And when you hit that landmark, for me, when I was living in Washington, D.C., it was the Memorial Bridge. When I went over the Memorial Bridge, now I'm leaving the Pentagon at work and I'm going home to the people that matter most. And I'd put on some music and I would start thinking about them, back to your gratitude piece,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about them and how grateful I was for them and their support and what they were doing and the excitement. So when I got home and walked in the door, I was ready to be present with them rather than bringing all the stuff from work home. So
I love that. I love the landmark idea. I did something similar. I don't do it anymore, but there was a period of my time when I was a new widow and I was coming home to very small children and, um, you know, job number 2 beginning when you have small kids and you're a single parent. And I would stop at this, I live near a lake, and one of the churches that's right on the lake has a big cross and a little platform there. And so I would pull over, and sometimes I would get out of the car. Sometimes I would just sit there for 2 or 3 minutes and just breathe and say a little prayer and just sort of center myself to say, okay, work is behind you. Now job number 2 is beginning and you can do this. And just sort of even a little pep talk to get myself in that frame of mind. So yeah, I like that. But I think even just, awareness is number 1, right? Awareness of, am I doing some kind of a transition? Am I doing some kind of recovery in between work and home? Maybe we created an awareness for some people today. So I like that.
I hope so.
All right. Well, here we go. Recovery. So it's not the stress that's stressing you out. It's the lack of recovery, right?
That's right. That's right. Let's oscillate and be undaunted.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as always, thank you guys for listening. We will have the show notes ready and some links in there. Please follow, subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you are watching or listening. And we appreciate some comments. And if you can rate on wherever you're listening, that would be wonderful as well.
Looking forward to seeing you next time. Let's go.
All right. Bye, guys. See you next time.